Gloucestershire closed in on a thrashing of Kent after some positive batting was followed up by some excellent bowling on the third day of their LV County Championship match at Neville Road in Bristol. The home side were already well placed at the start of the penultimate day, resuming their second innings on 213 for 4 for a very handsome lead of 351. Gareth Roderick began his day on 13 and looked to get on with things straight away. He's had an excellent match both with the bat and behind the stumps, and those at the ground were whispering about the 22-year-old's international credentials, the way he's performed in this first match back from injury. He struck the only 50 in the first innings for both sides, and within 50 minutes of this day, he converted his start into another one which had occupied 65 deliveries and contained 5 fours. He and his partner Hamish Marshall, who'd started the day on 66, were clearly looking to push on. And Roderick was certainly doing that as he struck a whole host of boundaries in the first 90 minutes of the day. It appeared that the decision had been made to get Kent into bat as early as possible, with some showers forecast for Bristol later on in the day. Gloucestershire were now approaching a lead of 450. They failed to defend 400 plus against Kent on a baking hot day in Cheltenham last summer, and so Michael Klinger kept his side out of the middle even after Marshall pulled Mitch Claydon for what was just his 9th 4 to go to his 100 off his 221st delivery. It was the 25th time the 35-year-old New Zealander has reached 3 figures in his career, a career which has now spanned some 16 years. It was tribute day at the ground, and so there was a good crowd in to sample the free Cornish ale. A band played in one of the many new complexes at this totally revamped cricket ground, and these two batsmen were batting in harmony as they scored one boundary after another to take their excellent partnership for the 5th wicket to 147, by which time the lead stood at 478 with a total on 340. That made sure that Kent would have to chase down the biggest score of the season and one of the biggest of all time. Yet there was still no declaration when Roderick was legged before to Darren Stevens for a superb 85, which had occupied only 95 deliveries. He was dismissed half an hour before lunch. 11 more runs were added by the time that Marshall's long vigil was ended, as he was bowled by Stevens for 118. That gave Stevens his 5th wicket for his second 5-wicket haul in as many matches. Klinger had obviously decided to bat on until lunch, and in the 15 minutes that remained, Benny Howell played some terrific shots to keep the scoreboard rattling along. The lead moved beyond 500, and by the time lunch was taken, Gloucestershire were 512 runs ahead, but Klinger still wanted more, which worked out rather well for Howell. When he came out after the break, he had only one thing on his mind, and that was to play some shots, and he played some fantastic ones. The new flats at the far end of the ground needed reinforced windows because, time after time, Howell drove the ball towards them or pulled the ball away from them. 1 6 followed another in an attempt to frustrate and damage Kent's confidence a little more. It was wonderful striking from Howell, who recorded the fastest 50 of the LV County Championship season so far. His 4th 6, a massive blow off Adam Riley, took Howell to his half-century off only 25 balls, from which he'd hit 4 6s and 4 4s. It overtook the previous quickest 50 made by James Vince, also on this ground, in 31 deliveries. This one may well take some beating all summer long. The big hitting still wasn't over. Howell has probably never struck a cricket ball so well. Some of his 6s carried well over the straight boundary. Will Gidman had watched all of this from the non-striker's end before he joined in with his own maximum. Then Klinger called them in after these two had added 82 runs in only 11 overs, Howell with 63 off 37 and Gidman ending on a runner ball 39. The declaration came with Gloucestershire on 443 for 6, and that left Kent 582 runs to win. Just 10 of those had been knocked off when Rob Key edged Will Gidman to Chris Dent with a loose shot. James Fuller then had Daniel Bell Drummond LBW for a duck as the batsman completed a pair in the next over. And when Brandon Nash drove Gidman without the necessary care and attention to be caught by Howell at point, Kent had slipped again to 24 for 3. Not a huge improvement on their first innings disaster. Sam Northeast had watched all three men fall from the other end, and his chat with new man Ben Harmison would surely have been about getting heads down and battling hard. Yes, this was not going to be a game they could win, but they had to make it a little more difficult for the home attack to take wickets. It had all been too easy for them so far in this match. Northeast had moved on to 20 after surviving for 19 overs, but he was then given out LBW to Tom Smith, a decision he didn't like too much, and one which left his side facing a 3-day defeat, now on 47 for 4. A lot now relied on Stevens, who showed what he was capable of with a thumping 6 off Smith. But he too didn't last long. On 10 he edged Will Gidman behind for the all-rounder's 7th wicket of the match, the catch being taken by Cameron Herring on as a sub after Roderick was injured. On Gidman's form over the last couple of seasons, an England Lions place should come one day before too long. As is often the case, he hardly bowled a bad ball even when he was not taking wickets, and the Kent batsman found life a lot easier when he was out of the attack. As the late afternoon sunshine came over the ground, the visitors did at last show their fighting qualities through Harmison and Sam Billings. They showed those above them in the order what was possible on this pitch, one which still favoured the batsmen in spite of the amount of cheap wickets which had fallen on it. These two batsmen ensured that a 4th day would be required. Harmison became the first Kent player to score a 50 on this surface, with this single off Smith taking him to his half-century off 83 balls and innings including 9 fours. Now well in and with a lot of time left to bat, he would have known that he had a chance of making something very big indeed from here. He and his partner continued to hold the home attack back for the remainder of the day as they established an excellent partnership to show just what could be achieved. Although under considerably less pressure with a good first innings lead behind them, a number of the Gloucestershire batsmen had batted really well second time around, and now Harmison and Billings were matching their efforts, showing some real character along the way. Billings has, like his opposite number, had a good game in spite of all the drama. Just before the close, he cut a rare bad ball from Gidman to the boundary for his 10th 4, which took him to his half-century off 96 balls. It was his first of the season and only the 3rd in the first-class game in his short career to date. He and Harmison can be proud of their efforts. Billings will go into the last day on 51 with Harmison on 66, and so far they've kept the Gloucestershire bowlers at bay for 31 overs in adding 96 runs for the 6th wicket. Of course, they still have an awful lot to do to save this match. Gloucestershire needing just 5 wickets on the last day. Kent need another 417 runs after making 165 for 5 so far.